March 1973. Catholics in the UDR. March 1973 saw the birth of popular American actor Jim Parsons. Parsons is most famous for his role as Sheldon in the hit show The Big Bang Theory. In Northern Ireland, the Republic of Ireland and England, paramilitaries had seemed to have their own theories on Big Bangs. On the 1st of March, a general election in the Republic of Ireland. As a result of the election, there was a change of government. Fine Gael, Labour coalition government took over from Fianna Fáil, which had been in power for 16 years. Liam Cosgrave succeeded Jack Lynch as Irish Prime Minister. The 29th meeting of the Northern Ireland Commission occurred on the 5th of March at Stormont Castle, with the Secretary of State chairing the meeting. During the meeting, 5 key areas were addressed. The current situation. The Secretary of State expressed his deep concern at the recent spate of sectarian murders. He had always felt that something like this might happen in the run-up to the border poll and the publication of the White Paper, but he had not expected it so soon. It was particularly difficult to catch assassins who fired from cars, and he would consider any new suggestions. He appreciated the importance of being seen to act impartially against all terrorists and, in this respect, his actions would speak louder than words. In a discussion of the New Lodge Road shootings, the Secretary of State outlined the explanation which had been given to him, and which, on the basis of the available evidence, he felt had the ring of truth about it. One member suggested that an alternative explanation of the incident, from a reliable source, cast doubt upon the version supplied to the Secretary of State. Another member, without taking sides between the two versions, said that it was disastrous that the army should have killed so many, just after there had been a wave of assassinations of Catholics. UDA. There was discussion on the advisability of detaining leading members of the UDA at this time. It was suggested that recent statements by the UDA vice-chairman appeared able to regulate the number of sectarian killings and were an admission that the UDA was importing illegal arms into the country. But it was recognized that many other factors could account for the recent increase in murders, and that the consequences of acting against the UDA leadership were likely to be serious. Some members felt that at this time there would be no purpose in proscribing the UDA since its members would simply reform in alternative organizations. Other members considered that the important point was that the security forces should be used equally and impartially against extremists in both sections of the community. The recent demonstration by loyalist extremists outside RUC headquarters was cited as one example of the UDA behaving as though they were beyond the law. There were suggestions that the Secretary of State should make regulations under the Special Powers Act to revoke gun licenses held by prominent UDA leaders, prosecute UDA men when they organized parades, or usurped the functions of the police and order the security forces to return fire when they were fired on by Protestant snipers. The Secretary of State said that, in addition to the illegal UVF and the UDA, there were other loyalist organizations, such as the Red Hand of Ulster Commandos and the Vanguard Service Volunteers. If the UDA were proscribed, its membership could transfer to these or to new organizations. The present prime objective was to identify those people who were responsible for taking part in or organizing the assassinations and to act against them. Concern was expressed about the lack of protection available for Catholic families threatened by the UDA in the Loughview and Redburn estates in Hollywood. Catholic families had already been driven out of the Knocknagoney estate by the UDA, which was now extending its activities into the Redburn and Loughview estates, but local residents were convinced that the UDA could be resisted if the security forces provided the minimum amount of support. The Secretary of State said that he would look into this matter and see what could be done. Security measures. The possibility of imposing further security measures was considered, and it was generally agreed that those who advocated martial law had little conception of its implications. The Secretary of State said that martial law was meaningless in the sense that it would confer no powers on the government that it did not have the ability to exercise already if it so decided. It was suggested that stiffer and firmer penalties should be imposed on those convicted of serious crimes. There were also suggestions that a curfew should be placed on the movement of cars in selected areas, that licensed weapons should be called in, and that the security forces should prevent shots from being fired at IRA and UDA funerals. Though it was difficult for laymen to assess military needs, it was felt that an increase in the number of troops might prevent a further spate of sectarian assassinations. The Secretary of State indicated that severe penalties were now being imposed, and he pointed out that since the beginning of January, 60 people had been convicted of serious crimes and sentenced to a total of 292 years. Curfews were generally ineffective because so many exceptions had to be granted. They were also prodigal of manpower, and they could involve the exposure of troops as sitting targets in difficult areas. The Secretary of State indicated that he could require licensed weapons to be tested ballistically, and that he could take powers to revoke licenses. But the basic problem was the number of unlicensed rather than licensed weapons, and he did not want to unduly alarm those people who lived in isolated areas and who needed licensed weapons for their protection. Referring to UDA and IRA funerals, the Secretary of State explained that because of the emotional nature of these events, they were not regarded as occasions on which the troops should interfere. There was a suggestion that a survey of Belfast should be undertaken to see if any roads that were not in frequent use could be permanently closed to traffic. This could reduce the arteries of escape open to sectarian murderers operating from cars. The Secretary of State indicated that this suggestion would be given further consideration. The visit to Mays Prison. The 4 members of the deputation indicated their intention to submit papers on their visit to the Mays Prison, and it was agreed that the papers should be circulated and discussed at the next meeting of the Commission. The Secretary of State expressed gratitude for an indication that since the authorities had made some changes in their search procedures, it had been possible to initiate a move towards the resumption of visits. He said that urgent parole cases would be considered by himself or one of his ministers, and that if they erred, it was usually on the side of leniency. Other matters. The possibility of increasing the number of Catholics in the UDR was discussed. It was pointed out that every effort was being made to achieve this, but a doubt was expressed about the utility of the exercise. The Secretary of State said that, in general, it was important that Catholics should be given and should accept every chance of playing an active role in the life of the community. A referendum was held on the 8th of March on whether or not the people of Northern Ireland wanted to remain part of the United Kingdom. This referendum became known as the Border Poll. However, nationalists boycotted the referendum, and only 57% of the electorate took part in the poll. It was not surprising, therefore, that, of those who took part, 98% were in favour of maintaining the union with Britain. On the 20th of March, a government white paper entitled Northern Ireland Constitutional Proposals was published, which proposed a devolved power-sharing 78-member assembly in Northern Ireland and a Council of Ireland. The election would take place under proportional representation, and Westminster would retain the powers relating to law and order matters. These proposals followed on from a discussion paper that had been issued on the 30th of October 1972 entitled The Future of Northern Ireland. There was an element in Unionist political opinion which was opposed to the idea of power-sharing and still favoured majority rule as the only basis for government. However, the idea of close links with the Republic of Ireland through the proposed Council of Ireland would prove problematic to many Unionists. Following the publication of the White Paper, the governing body of the Ulster Unionist Party, the Ulster Unionist Council, held a meeting on the 27th of March to decide its position. The Council voted by 381 to 231 votes to accept the White Paper. Nevertheless, there remained strong opposition to the proposals even among those who decided to support Brian Faulkner. Following the vote, several members of the UUP left to form a new political grouping on the 30th of March 1973. An interesting development occurred on the 28th of March when a ship, the Claudia, was intercepted off the Waterford coast in the Republic of Ireland. It was found to contain 5 tons of weapons which were en route to the IRA. The last political development came on the 30th of March when William Craig and some other former members of the Ulster Unionist Party formed a new political party, the Vanguard Unionist Progressive Party. The VUPP was formed with the support of the UDA. In addition to having close links with loyalist paramilitary groups, the VUPP also was prepared to accept an independent Northern Ireland because of the inevitable Unionist domination of any new government. Indeed, the VUPP had one loyalist paramilitary grouping, the Vanguard Service Corps, directly linked with the party. Shootings in March 1973, March 1st. The UVF shot dead a Catholic taxi driver, Stephen Kernan, 54, in his car on Mansfield Street, Belfast. March 2nd. The UVF shot dead a Catholic bus driver, Patrick Crossan, 34, as he stopped at a bus stop on Woodvale Road, Belfast. March 3rd. Off-duty UDR soldier David Deacon, 39, was shot dead by the IRA in Mullinan, County Derry, Londonderry. March 4th. British soldier Gary Barlow, 19, was tortured and later shot dead after being abducted by the IRA, while his army unit was raiding homes on Albert Street, Lower Falls, Belfast. British Army soldier Raymond Hall, 22, died 4 weeks after being shot by the UVF during a riot on Newtownards Road / Welland Street, Belfast. March 6th. British soldier Anton Brown, 22, was shot dead by an IRA sniper while patrolling Whitecliff Crescent, Ballymurphy, Belfast. March 8th. British soldier John Green, 21, was shot dead by the IRA while guarding a polling station, Slate Street School, Lower Falls, Belfast. Catholic civilian David Glennon, 45, was found shot dead in a car on Summer Street, Belfast. The UDA was believed responsible. March 16th, off-duty UDR soldier William Kenny, 28, was kidnapped by the IRA at Hallidays Road, New Lodge, Belfast. Found shot dead a short time later in entry off Edlingham Street, New Lodge. March 20th. The UDA killed Catholic civilian Bernard McAlane, 16, and wounded another in a drive-by shooting on Grosvenor Road, Belfast. Locals claimed a British Army Saracen APC smashed through a nationalist barricade minutes before the shooting, allowing the gunman's car to drive through. They accused the British Army of facilitating Protestant extremist murder gangs. The victims had apparently gathered after hearing the barricade being smashed. March 23rd. 3 British soldiers, Barrington Foster, 28, Michael Muldoon, 25, and Thomas Penrose, 28, were shot dead by the IRA in a house on Antrim Road, Belfast, to which the soldiers had been lured. The UDA shot dead a Catholic civilian and wounded another in a drive-by shooting on a house at Durham Street, Belfast. March 27th. Patrick McCabe, 16, a member of the Irish Republican Army Youth Section, was shot dead by a British Army sniper while walking along Etna Drive, Ardoyne, Belfast. March 29th. British soldier Michael Marr, 33, was shot dead by an IRA sniper while on foot patrol in Andersonstown, Belfast. Bombings in March 1973. March 5th. A UDA volunteer died when the bomb he was handling exploded prematurely on Woodstock Road, Belfast. March 6th. British soldier Joseph Leahy, 31, was wounded by an IRA booby-trap bomb planted in a derelict house in Mullabourne, near Forkell, County Armagh. He died 2 days later, on the 8th of March 1973. March 8th. The IRA exploded 2 car bombs in London and injured over 200 people. 1 person in the vicinity died a sudden death due to a heart problem. One of the bombs had been planted at the Old Bailey Court in London, injuring 180 people, whilst the other explosion happened at the Ministry of Agriculture in Westminster, injuring around a further 30 people. 2 other car bombs were defused. 9 people were found guilty of the bombings on the 14th of November 1973. 10 members of the PIRA, including Jerry Kelly, Dolores Price and Marion Price, were arrested at Heathrow Airport while trying to leave the country. Kelly was later to become a leading member of Sinn Féin and played a role in the negotiations that led to the Good Friday Agreement on the 10th of April 1998. March 13th. British soldier John King, 22, was killed by an IRA booby-trap bomb while on foot patrol, Coolderry, near Crossmaglen, County Armagh. March 15th. Catholic civilian Larry McMahon, 42, was killed when the UVF exploded a bomb at his house in Jordanstown. March 17th. British soldier Michael Gay, 21, was killed in an IRA landmine attack on his armoured patrol, Parkanaw, near Dungannon, County Tyrone. An IRA bomb exploded in the Spar supermarket, William Street, Lurgan. UDA volunteer Lindsay Mooney, 19, died when the car bomb he was transporting exploded prematurely as he parked outside Kirk's Bar, Clockfin, County Donegal. 15 people were injured in the explosion. March 26th. The IRA fired 4 rockets at British Army and RUC targets. 1 was fired at a British Saracen APC near the border, 1 at an RUC Land Rover near the border, and another at a British Army patrol in Belfast. March 27th. British soldier Andrew Somerville, 20, was killed in an IRA landmine attack on a British mobile patrol in Ballymacilroy, near Ballygawley, County Tyrone. Thank you for listening to this episode of Tales of the Troubles. If you liked it, please like and share with like-minded people. Stay tuned and enable notifications so that you don't miss the next episode.